Hi, and welcome to my video essay, and I'm going to be talking about a little bit of some life stuff around here in Virginia Tech, where we all know and love. So Virginia Tech, yeah, we all go here. We're either a student, grad student, teacher, professor, something like that of that nature. Or you may just be a Hokie fan. That might just be how it is, and that is what it is. So I would say Virginia Tech is pretty known across the country, I would say, especially when it comes to football and sports and stuff like that. As well as like around Virginia, especially like where I'm from, you're either basically a UVA fan or you're a Tech fan. And luckily my family was Tech fans. So yeah, but let's be honest, I was not smart enough to get into UVA. But anyway, so for the fall of 2023, we actually had 38,000 students enrolled. But I've never really known, even knowing about Virginia Tech my whole life, how the university really came to be. So current students know that we live with these guys 100% of the time. They're everywhere. They're on campus, in the dining halls, in our classes, everything. And it's kind of like, okay, but like, what's your life like compared to mine? Sorta. So, but when you realize without them, we wouldn't know the university as we know it today, which is pretty interesting in my opinion. So at the time, back in 1872, the Virginia Tech Corps Cadets founded what at the time was Virginia Agricultural and Mechanical College. Back then, the college was only a military school, so only soldiers could attend. Today, the Corps still makes up a decent amount of the university. I believe they have around 1,500 members, give or take, some leaving, some coming in, transfers, etc., etc. So the program itself really emphasizes leadership development, especially since most of their students are going into the Corps, not the Corps, but the military once they graduate. So the program emphasizes, obviously, the leadership development, teamwork, and the commitment to the principles of brotherhood, honor, leadership, sacrifice, service, and loyalty, which can be seen physically at our pylons, which we all know and love. So now, as a civilian student, you're probably wondering, why do I care? Well, you're going to find out in a couple days when I do my presentation. So yeah. But honestly, I wanted to kind of just understand more of their daily lives and what goes into being a cadet and how much different, how much harder or better it is for them, maybe. So all of the Corps, they live on Upper Quad together. So they either live in Pearson Hall East, Pearson Hall West, or Upper Quad Hall North. And they kind of like stay condensed in that little area. That's where they do their formation and training and stuff like that. Even though they are integrated into the rest of our college activities. So that means they are in our classes with us. They do have friends that are outside the Corps. They have times where they can be away. They can do their own thing, give or take responsibilities that come up. So the Corps also varies by ROTC, so we have an Army ROTC, we have a Navy ROTC, Army, Navy, Marine, who am I forgetting? Oh, Air Force, and then we have VPI, which VPI is pretty interesting to me because VPI are students that are in the Corps but aren't actually going into the military post-graduation. So I thought that was really interesting, and I'm like, why would anyone do that? Like, what's the point? But I was able to speak with one former cadet who did go through that, and I could understand his side of it, but I also possibly could understand why people do enjoy it. So most of these students have military contracts that go after college. A lot of them receive scholarships for that while they're in college. So actually through the Corps program, a lot of the students can go into the military instead of being just like a normal average Joe. They go into the military as officers, which is also really cool. So for freshman cadets, initially they're referred to as new cadets. So when they have to state their name, it's like NC/blah, blah, 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 last name, and then whatever company they're in. So they go through the week period before school starts, known as New Cadet Week. During this time, they learn the importance of discipline, really, if I had to put it anywhere. They participate in drills, obstacle workouts, wall climbing, and are tasked with memorizing information from their guidon, which is the little book that I did a lot of my research from. I can probably try to throw a picture of it in here if I have the time and can figure out how to edit. And it's really just learning. It's a learning experience. It's getting them accommodated with what's going on. And I think that's really good because if I was just thrown into something like that and I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, it would be really difficult. So now this brings me to kind of like my main area of focus, what I really wanted to look at. I really wanted to know why the cadets choose to do what they do, like what goes into it. So I was lucky enough to be able to hear some responses from both cadets and former cadets who shared their experience with me and things that were important to them, and it was really nice. So my 3 cadets who are still currently in the Corps gave me wonderful but real insight into their lives and their aspirations of being in the U.S. military. One of the cadets enlightened me on the fact that Virginia Tech actually has one of the, if not the highest rate, or gives him the highest chance of a Navy SEAL placement, which is really cool to me and something I did not know. But as anything goes, he also explained to me that there are some like pitfalls with leadership, that some leadership is kind of and that it can vary time to time. But all of them also describe that it is a good place to learn personal growth and leadership development, and how to, even with the bad leadership, they see what they don't want to be, if that makes sense. They know what they want to make of themselves. So one of the things that did strike out to me was that some of the leadership is based solely on popularity and other factors, which is kind of weird to me, and I would like to know more about that. But from what I gathered, they said sometimes the same leaders are getting picked over and over and over again for the same like jobs and positions. I'm not really sure how it works completely. It's mainly just kind of just stuff that makes you mad. Just, it is what it is. One of my other cadets, he explained that a lot of the bad leadership really doesn't do much as bad as you think it would. He said it's mainly just stuff that is there to make you upset. Like things that are meant to make you mad, but you can move past them pretty quickly because you learn that it's just how things are, and you just have to move past and get over it, and it's fine, and it really doesn't matter that much. So even with that, I was wondering kind of what is the other side of it? What about the cadets who didn't make it through or who chose to leave? The 2 cadets that really resonated with me the most were my 2 cadets who actually allowed me to use their names in my essay. They are both former cadets. Will and Jonathan both had completely different beginnings, completely different aspirations, but ended in the same result, which is really kind of odd, but it makes sense once you kind of hear their story. So Will was an aspiring Marine. He was in Marine ROTC, and he really enjoyed it at first. He loved it. He thought that it was really going to be good for him, but unfortunately he got injured halfway through his freshman year, and his Marine leadership kind of went a negative direction with that. He stated that he had been called weak and that they told him he shouldn't have gone to medical to begin with, even though his injury ended up being pretty serious and he had to get like outside help outside of like the university doctors that we provide here. He had to do a little bit more, and he said he just thought that it wasn't a good representation of what the Marine Corps should be. So he actually, he chose to leave the Corps, and now he's a sophomore, I believe. Yes, he's a sophomore and normal student here at Virginia Tech still, and he's actually seeking commission from the United States Marine Corps outside of the Corps Cadets, which I didn't know was an option, and I think that's really cool, and I'm really glad that he actually found something that was like good and worked for him, and he's able to still do what he enjoys and what he loves. And yeah, so it's good that he found that. So for Jonathan, he actually had kind of a different experience. He went into VPI, which is like he was not contracted to go into the military post-graduation. So he was kind of coerced into joining the Corps because he was in a military high school. His family him and his family kind of expected it to be similar, but it ended up being really different. He said it interfered with his social life, his academics. He was just overall felt really alone, really depressed. He didn't feel like he connected well with his buds, which are what the freshman class kind of refer to each other as. They're your buds. So after that, he kind of just made the decision that it was better for him to leave. It was going to be better for his academics to be at school here. And so both Will and Jonathan described losing friendships over leaving the Corps. Jonathan even said some of the people in his company to this day, which would be 6 months later, have not spoken to him and will not acknowledge his presence because he left. Which I think is kind of interesting, because I feel like the choice of staying in the Corps is also just as hard as choosing to leave, because you're still losing a big part of your life. Because for Jonathan, he played trumpet. He enjoyed that. He was in the band. He had been playing trumpet for over half of his life, and he had to give that up because he had nowhere else to go after he left the Corps. So, I mean, as a whole, it seems that the Corps struggles with definitely kind of a deficiency in consistent leadership, which kind of emerges as its primary pitfall. We see a lot of cadets fall through the cracks. They have mental problems, sicknesses, injuries that get overlooked, stuff like that. And then we also have people who do choose to leave lose the friends that they only have at the time, because they've only known the Corps. They are not a civilian student. The absence of proper leadership kind of endangers the whole climate, because it kind of puts an ill taste in many people's mouth, which I honestly was very against it. When I found out kind of what was going on with one of my friends and what happened with him, with the situation. But the more I've done my research and really looked into it, the more it's oh, then maybe it's just certain parts that aren't great. So I think the organization as a whole is very dynamic and is very beneficial to people who want to go into the military once their contract is up, because these students will have degrees already in line, and they're not going to end up like some of the veterans we see that are in the military for 20, 25 years end up homeless because they don't know, they don't have any education, they don't know how to do anything but be in the military. And I think that's really good, and I think that's very important, so we don't see that continue to happen. As I'm pretty sure veteran suicide is one of the highest suicide rates we have in the United States. So having a degree opens many doors for them, and they can do those jobs in the military, or they can do the jobs outside of the military. But I think it's also important to recognize the dedication on both sides and the decision-making on both sides. That's really what I wanted to kind of make a point of in this video essay. It is very hard to choose to go through that, especially at this age when you see everyone around you having normal lives and you're doing all these drills and these formation and all that stuff that comes with militaristic aspects. But it's also a really hard decision to choose to leave that organization if it's something that was really important to you. Like Will, he really enjoyed it and he liked it until he got his injury, and it really did kind of put a strain on relationships he had in the Corps, and both with his family, who were I think they were both prior military, and really just wanted him to be able to persevere through it. So while many individuals within the Corps have a strong sense of purpose and dedication, it's essential to recognize that both cadets and former cadets may have endured similar trials and tribulations during their time in the organization. I think it's important that everybody has a little bit of empathy for everybody, and that our cadets can be a little more understood by our civilian students, and that our former cadets could be a little bit more understood by our cadets that choose to continue. Everybody's in a different place. Everybody has different leadership. Everybody has different minds. It's just necessary to acknowledge that everyone deserves to find peace and fulfillment and wisdom in their experience and their decisions. And I think that this university is a very good bubble for that, because it holds both. You can be a normal student, you can get out. It's not you're just sent away and it is what it is. And I really think that's super important, and I really hope that everybody just kind of learns a little bit from this. And I thank you for listening to my video essay, and I will hopefully my little announcement on my presentation day doesn't shock anybody, but you might be able to figure it out, but we'll see. Thank you.